article by William Kane in 2007 named Birth Order and You, birth order is defined as, quote, your rank in your sibling constellation, unquote. Holly L. Roberts from Adler Birth Order Theory, dated February 15, 2012, concluded that Alfred Adler was a psychiatrist and a philosopher. He studied birth order, and his research did show that the birth order position a child does have will affect its personality traits. It is believed that a rank in a child's birth can have many influences on their personality and their traits. Now, the three main points that I'm going to talk about today are the traits and effects of the first child, traits and effects of the second child, and traits and effects of the last-born child. First, we're going to start off with the firstborn, and I'm going to tell you some statistics of the firstborn, personality traits of the firstborn, and the effects the traits have on the firstborn. According to the article, Is the Firstborn Really Different from the Baby?, dated September 9, 2011, researchers did study of 250,000 siblings, and what they found out was the firstborn does have a 3-point IQ advantage over the other siblings, and they also found out that the firstborn gets approximately 3,000 more hours time with their parents than any other siblings do. Now I'm going to go ahead and list some traits of the firstborn. First, they tend to be very responsible. They are assertive, they are pretty confident, they are almost always task-oriented, they tend to be perfectionists, and according to What Are the Effects of the Middle Child Syndrome, dated August 14, 2006, almost all presidents were firstborn, and all but 2 of the first astronauts were also firstborn. And that would make sense because another trait of the firstborns is they have a higher academic achievement than all of the other birth ranks. The last trait that I'm going to talk about today with the firstborns is they tend to be people pleasers, and that makes them succeed more in business than the other birth ranks. Now, to tell you a little bit about myself, I am a firstborn in our family. I have a sister who is 3 years younger than me, and in doing this speech, I have learned that I do fall in this firstborn category, and I do have all of these personality traits. Also, I do find myself very responsible because when we were younger, I used to care for my sister quite often when my parents would go to work, and I do feel that that made me very responsible. Now that we're done with the firstborn, and I have told you that they are very responsible and confident, we're going to move on to the secondborn, and I'm going to list some traits and personality, some effects and personality traits of the secondborn. The secondborn is usually referred to as having a middle child syndrome. They tend to feel left out because other ranks are getting more attention than them. They may act up for attention just because they are overlooked because the other siblings are getting more attention. They sometimes have to try harder to be heard or to be noticed. They do feel the need to compete for first place in their parents' eyes. Things sometimes are expected of them, like maybe tying a shoe or riding a bike, just because the older siblings have done that and are teaching the younger ones that. Sometimes they feel displaced or lost, angry. And lastly, sometimes they may look to their friends for support just because their parents are busy with the other siblings and they're not always there to support them. And now that we have went over some traits of the secondborn, which were totally different traits of the firstborn, we're going to move on to the lastborn here, and you'll notice that these traits of the lastborn are totally different from the first or the secondborn. Now, the lastborn, sometimes they are considered the family baby. They tend to be spoiled because they are babied so much. Believe it or not, they are usually the most sociable and do have the highest self-esteem of all of the birth ranks. Sometimes they're not very responsible because they haven't been given that opportunity to be. All of the other birth ranks are usually doing everything, so there's no real responsibility left for them. Sometimes they are not disciplined very often because parents are exhausted by this point in the birth rank, which then gives them more freedom. And the last trait is there's usually not a lot of rules for the lastborn to follow just because parents are mellowed out by this point. They are laid back and they're very relaxed. Now, those once again were traits of the lastborn. Now, in conclusion, I would like to reiterate that children do have many different personality traits based on the rank in their family. Whether you are the firstborn, who is responsible or confident, the secondborn, who feels lost and left out, or the lastborn who may act spoiled or not very disciplined, it's very important not to overlook yourself as a whole person. Each person is their own self, and their personality and their birth order is just a small piece to the large puzzle as to whom they really are as a person. Thank you.